5, 4, 3. Welcome for an earlier in the week edition of Horseshoe FAQ, a little Thursday afternoon conversation regarding this upcoming matchup between the Colts and Texans this go round at Lucas Oil Stadium. I'm Larra Overton, joined by the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, and you have the Colts facing the Texans for the second time now in a stretch of 3 weeks. The Colts posting back-to-back wins, of course, a massive one out in Las Vegas last week, back home now as they are in this march to the playoff in the final quarter of the season. Be sure you're submitting your questions right there in the comments to us, and we will banter here for the next few minutes and be sure we answer all of those for you. A heads up, we'll be doing these a little earlier in the week just to accommodate for some of the holidays and stuff. So we want to be sure that we're getting you all of the info to get you up to speed ahead of Sunday afternoons. Matt, this matchup between the Colts and Texans on Sunday, the Texans have been eliminated from playoff contention. The Colts have a lot to play for. So the Texans trying to play spoiler in this one.
Yeah, they're trying to play for pride. They're trying to play for next season. They're trying to gain some momentum and build a culture ahead of 2021, right? Because they've got a lot of injuries. They got a lot of guys banged up. They're going to be having the search is on already, I should say, for a new head coach, a new general manager. So there's going to be a lot of newness about the Houston Texans starting next season. But I tell you what, I mean, the Colts found out kind of the hard way. They got lucky 2 weeks ago down there. As long as they have Deshaun Watson, they have a shot. I mean, that's how good this guy is. That's how much Colts fans should respect his game, because he has that ability, kind of like an Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning with the Colts, to elevate everybody's play up to his. I mean, he took a couple of practice squad wide receivers a few weeks ago, and those guys had 100-yard games in that offense with Deshaun Watson. So this is, I still think this is going to be a very competitive game. Just because Houston comes into this game 4-9 and the Colts are 9-4 doesn't mean the Colts are automatically just going to show up and get a win. They have to put their best foot forward with 3 games left. They're right in the thick of the AFC playoff picture. Right now, they're the 6th seed if the playoffs were to start today. And so if they stub their toe in this game, that will really damage their wild card stock and their chances at winning an AFC South championship for the first time since 2014.
Injuries at this point in the season always going to be something that we talk a lot about. And one of those in terms of the Texans is who you just mentioned in Deshaun Watson, because he left that loss to the Bears. A.J. McCarron came in backup. What do we know right now on the status, the availability for Sunday's game of for Deshaun Watson? Because I know we heard him mention, whether that was Sunday afternoon after the game or maybe it was earlier in the week, that he's pretty insistent upon playing no matter what come Sunday afternoon in Indianapolis.
Well, right now he's not on the injury report, so I fully anticipate him playing. And again, this is a guy that, even though the Texans don't have a whole lot to play for right now, they can play the role of spoiler. And I heard Deshaun talk earlier this week. It's all about getting better. It's all about getting momentum for next season. And as the ultimate competitor, which he is, you know, it doesn't matter if a playoff spot is on the line or the AFC South championship de facto title game is this upcoming game on Sunday. It doesn't matter. You know, if he's healthy and he can play, you know, an NFL season, Larry, you only get 16 games, and he's got all off season to kind of rest and worry about next season for the next 6 months. It's all about finishing off these last 3 games if you're the Texans on a high note. So again, I fully anticipate the Texans giving the Colts their best shot. And again, 2 weeks ago, the Texans were 2 yards away and a bad snap away from beating the Colts 27-26.
Well, a few injury notes from the Colts perspective, and keep those questions coming in. We will debate those and discuss those shortly. Well, I wanted to update you on the injury report today. A couple good indications for both Xavier Rhodes and Darius Leonard. They were full participants in practice. They, of course, left the game in Las Vegas a little bit early, but neither one was ruled out of that game. They were just questionable to return when they left those games with their respective injuries. But each of those guys who are pivotal pieces to this defense, both practicing today. Also, Mayte, we quickly have to acknowledge this week the return of Rigoberto Sanchez.
Oh, yeah.
And what a lift that has been. He got back out on the practice field yesterday, just kind of going through the motions. He's going to be very steady in working his way back in, not rushing him back. So it is very much regimented in how they're going to bring him back in. And so his availability, we don't know when he's going to return to game action, but just having him back around the guys, you could see how much that uplifted this entire team.
Oh, without question. You know, he talked to reporters on Wednesday, and he was very emotional. And I thought, you know, it took him a while to kind of compose his thoughts, and rightfully so, because of everything that he had been through in the last 2 weeks. I mean, you go back to the Wednesday before Thanksgiving when he kind of senses within his body that something's off a little bit. So he gets examined, gets looked at. They have an ultrasound, an MRI to kind of scan the entire body. And of course, they found what they found. And then you deal with just the emotional weight of that, right? So, I mean, you're talking about just 2 weeks of a lot of, you know, carrying of emotions and a lot of things you don't normally have to worry about in a course of a regular NFL season. So I think it's just a remarkable thing, Larra, that he is back this early, doing as much as he is. And again, as you said, he's been a full participant the last 2 days at practice, which again is just fantastic news. I've never obviously been through anything like this, so I'm just utterly impressed with how he's handled it, the physical, you know, bounce back that he's been able to show so far. And again, the Colts are not ruling him out for Sunday. There's a chance he could, you know, be back on the game field 3 weeks after all of this started, which is just an unbelievable story. Plus, he's a great weapon. I mean, we've seen, I mean, not that the Colts have had a huge drop-off in the punting game with Ryan Allen, but Rigoberto has shown since 2017 that he is one of the better punters situationally in the NFL with the coffin corner punts, the high hang time. He's a really good holder. He's a really good kickoff specialist. So it's a weapon that the Colts could be getting back on Sunday, and that's a big thing considering, again, you only have 3 games left, and they all matter so much in the playoff picture.
A couple of questions coming in now. Peyton wants to know, when's the next Uncle Phil content coming out? I can assure you that there is some Uncle Phil content headed your way very, very soon. So you're not going to have to wait long. Do have some things planned, some things that'll be in the mix here in the coming days. Mayte, I'm going to serve this one up to you. Neil asking, do you think this will be JT's best game? Jonathan Taylor coming off his best game of the year so far. He had those 2 touchdowns, 150 yards rushing, such an impressive effort out in Las Vegas.
There's a chance because the Texans, they're not very good at stopping the run. You know, they gave up $160 to the Bears last Sunday. They're 31st in the NFL in rushing defense, giving up on average over 150 yards per game. And that's good news for the Colts. As you said, they're coming off their best game of the season on the ground and pound aspect of things, where Taylor had $150. The Colts team had 212. Also, Nyheim Hines was ripping off some long runs. He had a long run of 31. That was his longest run of his career. So things are kind of hitting the right stride here at the moment in the Colts ground game. I mean, you always want to be peaking at the end of the season, and the Colts are doing that. I mean, in the last month here, if you look at the overall numbers in the ground game, the Colts are averaging $125 in the last month. They've been over 100 yards rushing in 6 of their last 7, and everybody's been freaking out all season long. It's like, why are the Colts not able to run the ball like they did 2 years ago in 2018? They got the same offensive line. Now they have this great back in Jonathan Taylor. Well, it's been slowly building, and then last Sunday they just completely busted the door down with over 200 yards and that long run of 62 by Jonathan Taylor. So, yes, I fully expect the consistency to continue to be there in the ground game for the Colts.
And that production on the ground was complemented by a huge day from the guy over my shoulder here, T.Y. Hilton, as well. So that was complimentary, you know?
And I think that's the great word you use, complimentary and balance. You know, the Colts on offense, like if you asked Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers and Nick Sirianni at the beginning of the season, what ideally does your offense look like? That played out on Sunday for sure. I mean, you went over 400 yards. You had over 200 in both the run and the pass. Phillip Rivers didn't have to do too much. He took what was given to him. He only threw the ball 28 times. Plus, he got T.Y. Hilton going. They were 8 for 11 on 3rd down. They were really efficient inside the red zone. So, again, ideally, That's how the Colts want to play every single week. Now, I don't think they can get 456 yards every time out, but that's pretty darn close to perfect at this level in the NFL.
This makes me realize I need some more defensive representation here on my setup. I have Jonathan Taylor and Ty, and then I've got Reggie over here. So I'll have to mix it up next week and be sure we're paying homage to our defense as well. A question here from Bob, and as we're talking about the Colts rushing attack, because it's been very much mixing things up between Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and Jordan Wilkins. Bob asks, what are your thoughts on running back by committee? Seems like it's a recipe for slow starts until they figure out the hot hand.
Well, they've been a running back by committee offense all season long. You know, Frank Reich and Nick Sirianni, they'd get together during the week. They script the first couple of series, the first 15 to 25 plays or so. And then after that, Tom Rathman and really all the position coaches, they dictate the rotations, which players are in certain moments, certain plays. So that running back by committee approach has a lot to do with Tom Rathman, who is the running backs position coach. But I would agree with the
legend.
Question. Yeah, I don't want to be running. I don't want to be on the Tom Rathman tracks when he's barreling down as a fullback back in the day with the 49ers for sure. But I think again these last couple of weeks, Jonathan Taylor has emerged as the best guy suited to get a lion's share of the carries down the stretch. I mean, he's averaging somewhere in the 20s in terms of attempts in these last 3 games. So I fully anticipate that's going to be the case going forward. I mean, he's a typical, a stereotypical back in the sense that he gets better as the game goes on. We saw that routinely in Wisconsin with the ability to kind of turn a 4-yard gain into a 12-yard first down, bouncing off tackles, the yak. So he has kind of proven that he can do that at this level, and those speed bumps that he kind of ran into and ran over in the month of December, he's kind of smoothed all that out. And I think for me, the biggest thing from what I can notice, Larra, is that Jonathan Taylor has, not that he was bad at this at the beginning of the season, but he's really done a nice job and has figured out how to run the ball out of the shotgun. At Wisconsin, he was in the I formation. A lot of times he was behind a quarterback, under center, a fullback in front of him. And it's just kind of a little bit foreign to him. But now that he's gotten used to it, now that we're past the halfway point of the season, really 3/4 of the way into the campaign, I think he's really done a nice job of figuring out how to be a patient runner, running the ball out of the shotgun, which the Colts typically do. I mean, that 62-yard run to Pater the other day, that was out of the gun where they kind of swept him to the right. So I think right now he's the complete total package where he's a 3-down back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's a great pass protecting blocking back too.
Ricky wants to know about Michael Pittman Jr., who certainly had a stretch of breakout performances, a few games in a row for him. Ricky asks, he's been quiet for the last few weeks. Do you think Pittman gets more involved, or has the offense gravitated toward Ty in the passing game?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree a little bit. I don't think he's been quiet. I mean, he's got over 40 yards in each of the last couple of games. He had that breakout game, that 100-yard game a few weeks back. And so I don't think he's been quiet at all for how the Colts need him to play. And again, remember, he's only a rookie. And as you said, T.Y. Hilton has broken out here a little bit. It's good that, this entire season, the Colts offense, they've been spreading the wealth. At least 7 different guys have caught a pass every single game. Up to as many as 11 guys have caught a pass twice this season in ball games. But here lately, you've got your main playmakers starting to emerge. Your go-to guys, as Rick Venturi likes to call them, your ambient players. Guys, if you're a defensive coordinator, these are the guys who are going to keep you up at night in terms of trying to figure out how to stop, right? You got Nyheim Hines, you got T.Y. Hilton, and you got Jonathan Taylor. But then outside of that, you just got a rock-solid group of really good football players, a really good supporting cast of good role players like Jack Doyle, Trey Burton, Michael Pittman, Zach Pascal. I mean, take your pick on how you want to slow down the Colts on a given day. Mo Alley-Cox, right? I mean, Mo has had a 100-yard game earlier this season. So no matter what you want to focus on, no matter what you want to take away, the Colts should have an answer to kind of exploit you in something you're neglecting that given Sunday.
Couple of questions on the Colts defense. We've spent a lot of time talking about the offense, and rightfully so, especially coming off of the performance that they had in Las Vegas, putting up the most points for the Indianapolis Colts, I believe, since 2014, right? Right, Matt? Week 13 of 2014.
Yep.
So a couple of questions now, flipping to the defense. Ben wants to know, what are we doing to tighten up defense in the first half of regulation? Offense is solid. Second half defense is scary. Just need to tighten it up for the full 60 minutes. That's something that you're always talking about. That's something that Coach Reich hits on each and every week, is playing complementary football, all three phases, and a full 60-minute performance.
Well, obviously, if I had the answer, if the Colts had the answer, we wouldn't be talking about this, right? Typically what gives the Colts trouble in these first half of games is quarterbacks getting out of the pocket. They seem to do a better job of figuring out how to stop that after halftime as they go in and regroup. The Colts, you could say, I think fairly, that they've been a better adjusting team than they've been a preparation team, at least to begin the game. Like on defense, they've given up certainly more points lately in the first half than they've gone on to give up in the second half. But again, I go back to games earlier.
They've also
this season.
faced some really good offenses when you talk about Tennessee,
right.
Houston, the Raiders, the Packers.
And all those teams have mobile quarterbacks. That's what I was going to get into. You had Baker Mayfield back in week 5. You had Aaron Rodgers, who is very adept at getting outside. Obviously, this guy we're playing on Sunday in Deshaun Watson. And that's the thing, you go back 2 weeks ago, the Colts had so much pressure on Deshaun. They got him down for 5 sacks, but he's like a bar of soap, Larra. I mean, he's just so slippery back there. It's hard to kind of, fully get your grasp on him because he's always kind of squeaking out, right? So they could have got him for like 8 or 9 sacks, but he's just so good. He's so athletic and has this great pocket escapability where he can avoid a 4-man rush. And that's what the Colts did. They got home on him with a 4-man rush, or they got to him on a 4-man rush. I think in this game, you might have to dedicate a little bit more presence to get after him. Maybe spy with a Darius Leonard at times. I think you might have to send 5 and 6 guys to get him down on the ground, because that's how good he is at being able to evade at least a 4-on rusher. So, he's a guy that consistently gets sacked a ton. I mean, he got sacked 7 more times against Chicago on Sunday. That makes 12 sacks in the last 2 games. He's been the most sacked quarterback dating back to 2017. So offensive line's not a big strength of theirs. So, you got to start the ball game out better if you're the Colts. But I think you got to send 5 and 6 guys at a time sometimes on Deshaun Watson, especially situationally, if the moment calls for it, if there's a big moment of the game, or on third down.
Time for just a couple of more, and I can't believe it's taken us this long to get to it, but I'm so glad that Sosa brings up, do you think Kenny Moore will get an INT this game? He picked off Watson in the last 2 meetings, but even more so, yes, he has been very effective on Deshaun Watson. Have you seen a better one-handed interception in your life than that performance that Kenny Moore had out there in Las Vegas, the pick that he had against Darren Waller? That was, unbelievable.
It sure was. I mean, I've gone back and I've watched it, on all the highlight shows. Every time I watch it, I'm just more and more impressed. And that's the thing. It's like we're ending the end of the year here, Larra. I mean, they always do those cut-up shows on ESPN and Fox Sports, all the best plays of the year. That's got to be on there. And I think it's regardless of an offensive player or a defensive player, I think it's the best catch of the year by anybody in the NFL. Just Kenny Moore just packs such a big punch. And I mean this as a major compliment. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the NFL that gets more out of their body, their size, their stature than Kenny Moore, right? I mean, if you just look at him, you're like, I don't know if this guy's the best cornerback in the NFL, but he plays like that because of the heart, the hustle, the want to. And again, he just gets the most out of his body, more so than a lot of guys his size. He's got tremendous wingspan, obviously great hands, but it's just the football IQ, being in the right place at the right time, and then just the ability to go make plays. We hear it all the time. That guy's just a playmaker. When there's a play to be made, not everybody always makes the play, but Kenny Moore, more often than not, he makes the play out there on the field.
This is a fun question. I want to be sure to get to it. Matthew asks, and we're, of course, around the holiday season, amid the holiday season. His question is, this Colts team is more of a family than so many other teams in the NFL. Do you think they've made holiday preparations to celebrate Christmas as a family? One of the things that I would say is a lot of these guys are going to be limited in terms of most often you would have family coming in maybe ahead of this game, then they would stay in town and stay with you. Of course, celebrating some of the holidays and everything, being for an extended period of time, maybe 4 or 5 days or a week. And a lot of that will be minimized just because it's maybe not as safe to travel. The guys are going through protocol and the testing each and every day. So a little bit risky maybe to have people coming in and having a bunch of people staying at your home or whatever it might be. So I would say that most people who had planned to do the Christmases, maybe bring in their siblings or their parents, grandparents or whatever, have scaled those things back. So you got to be able to celebrate with those who you are with. So I would expect that you have maybe position groups getting together and having some holiday dinner with them because, you know, they're in their pod, they're together every day. You know that you're all safe and healthy and you can look out for one another. So I would expect that. That's one of those things too. It's always fun to see, like, you know, the gifts that the quarterbacks give the O-line and those type of different things. So you expect to see those coming out maybe in the next few days on social media. Normally the guys are tweeting some thank yous and just grateful and appreciative for their teammates. But I think most of all, you know, the one thing is even more so than the lavish gifts this year, you take the focus on being appreciative of the people who you have around you. And that's one of the things I think that we've learned in 2020. And I think maybe that's the mentality this team will take in terms of celebrating their Christmas together in whatever fashion they decide to.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I'm in the same boat. I mean, it's all about appreciating the small things in 2020, right? I mean, we kind of experienced that a few weeks back on Thanksgiving. Be thankful for just so many things that we kind of take for granted every single year that we don't have in 2020, but also appreciating the things that we still have here in 2020 with all the weirdness going on in our daily lives. So I would fully expect, you know, because to your point, I mean, the guys have to, it's kind of like the bye week, right? I mean, even though they're off, they still have to, you know, adhere to the protocols. They still got to get tested. So they're still going to have to go to the complex on Christmas Day to be tested because that's just, it falls in line during the regular season. So that's part of it. So I would fully anticipate a lot of guys getting together in small groups. And I think it makes perfect sense to do the position group thing that you alluded to. And I'm just so happy that we still get to kind of, you know, do Christmas with our little ones, Larra, and, you know, I call my house the bunker, right? We've just bunkered up for like 8 or 9 months. We're happy. We're healthy. We know we're safe. There's plenty for us to do. We can get creative with some things. And we're gonna look back on this 5 years from now and kind of look back fondly on some of the things about 2020 and how it grew us closer to some of the things that we didn't normally do in a normal year.
Well, as we wrap up this edition of Horseshoe FAQ, we are certainly thankful for all of you who hang out with us each and every week and submit those fantastic questions. Also, thankful for Brent Hollerud and Mike Stevens, who are behind the scenes producing all of this, gathering all the questions and making the production happen. So Brent and Mike, we appreciate you guys as well. So for my co-host, Matt Taylor, I'm Larra Overton. Join us on Game Day, the Bell Tire Radio Network. Matt and Rick will get things rolling at noon with Colts against the Texans kicking off at 1 o'clock. Stay safe, stay healthy. We will look forward to seeing you on Game Day. Go